Everybody, and we're going to get started with our COVID briefing. This is something we do regularly, mostly every 2 weeks, depending on what may or may not happen with respect to COVID. And today we're obviously featuring our airport, and so we're going to hear an update on what's happening here with respect to recovery from our airport director in just a little bit. Now, what I want to touch on initially is some of our basics with respect to where the city's at in terms of COVID. And I also just want to mention that, the Sunport is an amazing facility. And so all of us kind of know about it. Maybe we haven't been here in 2 years. I think the last time I flew was about 18 months ago. And it is getting busier. And you can even see behind me, there are people here again. There were a lot of times we were here when it was completely empty. So things are picking up. And of course, very special to showcase the Sunport with First Lady Biden last week right here at our Albuquerque Sunport. Now, let's talk about some of the numbers in terms of where we're at. And you can see them on the slide here today, right over here. And in short, if you look at our comparison of sort of the gating criteria, you see a similar situation that we've seen really for the last 5 months. And it shows us in terms of that positivity rate well below the state threshold. That's why we're in yellow. We continue to do good on that front. And so we appreciate everyone who continues to get tested. That's a key part of that. But also everyone helping to reduce spread. We also know that when it comes to the positive cases per 100,000, we continue to see challenges. And you can see the official numbers here, and I think officially, again, we continue to sort of flatline, even go a little bit up. And so this obviously begs the question of, well, when are we ever going to get to green? And I'll tell you right now, that could be very difficult under the current criteria. And we've warned about this for a long time, but right now in Albuquerque, we've got to also understand we're at a crossroads. We have been for generations, since time immemorial, and that effect is still very real now in a sense that we know this is where the Sunport is. We have people coming in from all over the country and obviously all over the state. When they come and go from New Mexico, they go through the Sunport. We also know we have all the major hospitals, most of the major hospitals. And of course, we have everything from the shopping mall to Isotopes Park, which is going to be opening for Isotopes games, to United games. And so, look, Albuquerque is at the nexus of the state of New Mexico and about 1,000 square foot radius. So we know that we're going to be challenged when it comes to this category. And so this also is why vaccinations are so important. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a moment, but let's just pause for a second and look at some other states around us, other cities around us. And so looking at our comparison, if you compare us again to Denver, Tucson, Austin, Los Angeles, despite our challenges with the gating criteria, we are still either first or second in every category that matters when it comes to COVID and vaccine and recovery. So even though we're having a challenge being stuck in yellow, we are doing much better than the other places around us. And so you can see across the line, if you look at the number of positive cases, we're doing better than everyone except for Austin. If you look at the percentage positives, we're doing better than everyone except for Denver. And if you look at the vaccination percentage, they're again better than everyone except for Denver. So we are doing really good compared to other cities, and I think that's important. And I appreciate the public health department, all our hospitals, everyone who's getting vaccinated, everyone who's getting tested, everyone who's wearing a mask and following that public health order. That is why we are literally a healthier place to be than these other cities during a pandemic. And we think also during recovery. Now, when we touch on some of these issues as a reminder, we have been this way throughout. So we have this data, but you can see here Albuquerque's the thick line right there. We're, again, sort of second best, if you want to look at it that way. This is the story in all of these categories, and it has been throughout the pandemic. So we continue to demonstrate a leadership position. And you see that also in the positive test rates as well. And I think most importantly right now, you still see it too with respect to vaccinations. So I showed you that grid in terms of how we're the second best in the West in terms of the number of people who've been vaccinated. Now, if you look at us compared to the United States and to the rest of New Mexico, we're a little bit behind when it comes to New Mexico, but I would actually say that's kind of a good thing because rural New Mexico is where the challenge is for vaccinations. So if they're ahead of us, that's okay, because we know also vaccinations are going to be really easy to get for a long time. We don't have to do as much special outreach as we do in rural New Mexico. So I think we're right where we should be there, and just a point above the rest of the United States. So that's also very, very encouraging. So when we look at the map of New Mexico and sort of the latest color coding, I do want to share this. You know, we're very optimistic because the state is signaling heavily, no secret, that they're going to revise some of the criteria. And they're also going to weave in vaccination rates and so forth into the criteria. We think this is very good. We're very excited about when that's going to be announced. It could be as soon as tomorrow, it could be later, it's up to the state, but we do know that they're working on revising some of these criteria. And I would just say, I think it's just appropriate, it's at the right time. This criteria has gotten us through to here, and it has made us a safer state and a safer city than many around us, and that's a good thing. And so I think by and large, this current setup has essentially worked more or less. But now what's new is vaccinations, right? So as vaccinations get rolled out, it's just time to refresh the system and how we're doing this. And so I really appreciate the governor and the state for looking at that. And we are going to be ready as soon as that new criteria is announced, whether it's small things like the zoo or whether it's things like Civic Plaza, the convention center, or tournaments. We will update as soon as we can, Albuquerque, all things Albuquerque, up to that new criteria. So we'll just wait and see what that is. And when that comes out, give us a day or two, and we will certainly share all of the updates with the public. So I think with that, I want to talk about the Sunport. And I think the good news is the Sunport is making a comeback, just like Albuquerque. And so it's hard to believe that it was, just a couple of months ago when these escalators were literally empty. And so it's great to see people coming off and getting on, and there are reasons for this. So to go into the numbers, let's hear from our own expert, the director of our airport, Nika Allen. Nika?
Thank you, Mayor. So the Sunport is certainly still feeling the effects of the pandemic, but we continue to be encouraged by increasing passenger numbers and flight availability, as well as the reopening of several shops and restaurants throughout the terminal. It feels great behind me right now to walk through the terminal and to feel the sense of bustling that we missed over the past year. Our concession partners continue to expand their hours and reopen locations. Fresquez, one of our vendors here, is our restaurant operator, and they're actually even offering sign-on bonuses for new employees. So if you're looking for a job, think about one here at the Sunport. We know there's a lot of pent-up demand, and we are happy to be welcoming back travelers while also maintaining our COVID-safe practices. Passenger traffic has been steadily increasing over the past couple of months. Our most recent 30-day average is about 7,300 passengers per day. Our busiest travel days during the last month were April 8th, 9th, and 22nd, each seeing over 9,000 passengers per day, which compared to the same period last year, during the height of the pandemic, of course, we are up over 1,000%. And from 2019 numbers, which is how we typically measure ourselves, we are down only 50%, which is quite a bit of recovery since we spoke last. We are seeing a lot of positive trends to our direct flights, and the direct flight options continue to improve, both in destinations and in frequency. We currently have 20 direct offerings from coast to coast, which is down from 25 in our height. Upcoming schedule changes include Allegiant's return to the Albuquerque market, with flights to Austin, Las Vegas, and American's return to Los Angeles. You can see all of our direct flights here. Only missing a few from our former schedule. One thing I do want to note is that your favorite airline may not have that direct flight. So it is important to note that passenger demand drives those direct flight options. And if you are planning a trip in the upcoming months, please consider all of our airline options and choose the nonstop option whenever possible. Thank you very much. Update from Sunport.
Thanks. All right. Well, thank you so much, Nika. And I do want to emphasize how she so diplomatically put it. Look, some of this is kind of on us. Pick direct flights out of here on any airlines, and we'll get more. It's a sort of self-reinforcing cycle. It's based on supply and demand. So I know a lot of folks like, what happened to that direct flight to LA? There's other ones. Choose those, and the other airlines will follow suit. Not to pick on a particular airline of the colors blue and red. So anyway, with that, we hope they all return their flights very, very soon. So with that, let me mention, I think, just one other thing, which is that, the airport continues, as Nika mentioned, to increase its services that are available. I just want to emphasize this hiring issue. We are having an issue hiring all over the city, at the Sunport, at the vendors at the Sunport, at the transit department, at the solid waste department. And look, a lot of it has to do with different things with respect to unemployment situations and family situations. We understand that. I would just say that remember to try and build in some lead time. If you think you might need a job financially, in July or August, start looking now, get all that paperwork now, and we'll all work with you so that, maybe your start date can be August 1 when that unemployment runs out and so forth. And so just encouraging folks to plan ahead, and that'll help us also know that we can have a full recovery where we can staff everything and not have to have things like limited bus service or limited vendor services at the airport. Okay, with that, I think we'll take questions.
Thanks very much. Yeah, so any questions about today's briefing on the Sunport COVID numbers? Any interested?
Speaking of the jobs, and this is going to be for Irving, what positions are you looking for? What do you have trouble with?
Yeah, so I'll just repeat it and then Nika can field those. Questions kind of a little more detail on the jobs, which specific types of jobs we need and so forth.
Thank you. So a lot of the roles that we're seeing that need to be filled right now are ones that had to be let go because of lack of passenger demand. So a lot of things like concessionaire partners, our retailers, they really need a lot of support. Cooks in the kitchen. We have less at the city because luckily we were able to keep all of our city jobs throughout the pandemic. So we're very proud to be able to say that we kept all of our jobs. But certainly our partners here. A lot of our airlines are rehiring as well, but a lot of them were on furlough situations, so they're coming back. But so mostly we're looking at those types of retail concession jobs here at the Sunport. Sure.
What is your message to people out there that are afraid to fly? How safe is it to fly? Are they safe coming here to the Sunport to have to fly? What would you say to somebody that's like, I'm worried to fly?
Certainly. So the question was on reassuring people that it's safe to travel. And we most certainly think it's safe to travel right now, especially if you're vaccinated. And so that's definitely one of the biggest things. Being vaccinated, of course, significantly lowers your chance of getting COVID. And here at the Sunport, we put everything in place to help people know, regardless of whether or not they've received that. But the CDC does recommend vaccination. However, the airlines, of course, there's mask mandates throughout both the terminal and the airlines themselves when you're on the airplane. Those masks must be glued to your face, so that's certainly one thing. We've also done a lot of things through the travel experience, light touch or low touch situations when you're actually doing things like checking in or getting a rental car. So you're dealing with people physically a lot less than you used to if you're new coming back. Additionally, we disinfect this terminal every single night using a local company to help disinfect our terminal, and very proud of that. We have an autonomous robot helping us with also our custodians as well, who have been really our rocks throughout the year. But there's a lot of protections in place for people. Definitely distancing is still important, and even with our numbers coming back, you can still certainly find your own space within the terminal.
So let me just add two on that. Two other things. One is if you want some B-roll of Breezy the robot, it's good B-roll. Second thing is there is testing available at the airport. So as a reminder, we have a great partnership with the local company, Southwest Labs, and they can even there's a range of tests, like you can get it super fast or different types of testing, and you can get that when you land, like if you need proof of test and that kind of thing, or as you're going out. And so I know depending on where you're going when you land, either in your destination or upon arrival, some folks do want that and so forth. We're very fortunate at the Sunport you can get that right after you walk outside of security, and there's no wait right now either. Yeah, Babak, go ahead.
We've got one question online, just from Dahlia in the journal. I was wondering if the cities had to limit any services.
The question is about is the city had to limit any services because of shortages, and the answer is sometimes. And so some of our bus routes and times continue to be modified. You can get details for that on transit. Again, it hasn't been significant, but we continue to have that modification. And we do continue to have to spend certain overtime shifts, sometimes in solid waste, sometimes in APD, sometimes in fire, because of different shortages. And also with respect to things like facilities, security, and so forth. So we could probably get you details on that if you want. But the good news is services have not been materially affected, but they are certainly still impacted by the shortage. And again, that overtime issue is something, we want to create the jobs, we want to have jobs, but we compensate for lack of folks filling those jobs, typically by filling in with overtime. And this is across the board. And so that's how we make sure that those services are still up and running. All right, thanks everybody.